Hey everyone, my name is Zed and I'm from Silo Finance. I want to talk to you about programmable markets and how they help us with product market fit, product PMF, with PMF, and how they can help you to find it as well. So let's start from the beginning. Silo was created as a necessity to make the lending market more secure in, during the old times, DeFi summer 2020, 2021. We had a lot of demand for risk assets and long, those risky tokens that were just released. And, that demand was met with forks of Compound or Aave. And obviously, they're not designed for risk assets. And what actually happened, a lot of hacks, and the simple asset, one single asset introduced to shared pool design like Compound just spoils the whole bunch and everyone loses money. So that was the reason why Silo was created, and we actually launched the first version in 2022. And we got to pretty good TVL. We got some nice adoption, but really quickly we kind of reaching the ceiling, glass ceiling, and we couldn't go through it. And as you can see, our chart of TVL is full of pain. And the reason for that is Silo V1 was designed for one use case in mind. And obviously, you have your assumptions, and then you launch the products and your users will tell you that, it's good, but then there's a bunch of other things that you should do differently. There are other features that you should, introduce to the project, but we couldn't do it because the whole thing was essentially immutable. So there's nothing really we could, and any improvement to the protocol, those small things that a lot of times turn out to be big hits, were very expensive to introduce, because just a single line of code to a code base that is like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 lines of code can introduce a critical bug, which, many times it happened already. So that begs the question, how can you have immutable contract, immutable product in DeFi and still improve and introduce new features to find product market fit? And the answer is hooks. And that's exactly what we did. We designed the hooks for a new version of the protocol in a way that they should be the simplest possible way to introduce small incremental improvements to the protocol. And this was our North Star, right? We wanted those small things that you can do quickly to be isolated in a single contract, so you can focus only on your stuff, on your features, and then the rest of the protocol can handle, the kind of infrastructure things. So in design, they're very similar to Uniswap v4, and everyone knows about those by now. So when we actually developed the Silo hooks feature, and we started doing benchmarks, right? We wanted to see how much simpler it really is. And the first example from the top, in lending, in two-asset lending pairs, a lot of times you have assets that are good for collateral, but are not good for debt. They're not secure this way. So you have to forbid borrowing one of the assets. So essentially you create one-way lending pool. And if you wanted to do this in, the code base, the core code base, we had to remove like maybe 120 lines of code, which introduced like a lot of changes, a lot of security assumptions change. And now, even though the code does become simpler, you have to go through the whole process of like testing, peer reviews, formal verification, fuzzing, audits, multiple audits, and it just becomes a huge, huge process. With hooks, you can do exactly the same. You can achieve exactly the same features with 18 lines of code, which you can write during the evening, and then on Tuesday send to your buddies for reviews, and by the end of the week, you have launched this on production. So this is an absolutely huge improvement in terms of like those small incremental improvements for your product, and this allows you to actually find your product market fit much better, right? And this is not something that we just invented. Web2 has been doing this for many, many years now. It's just in DeFi, the problem is when you have actually mutable contracts, something that the code that cannot change. So on top of the silo hooks and our vision to do incremental improvements, we also introduced the deployer fees. So essentially what now the developer can do, they can write the hook with the custom feature or maybe multiple hooks and connect to a single silo market and deploy the silo for themselves, spin up their own UI, and essentially launch a brand new lending protocol with their own features and differentiators. And it will take you much less time than it took us to build this whole thing from scratch. So we launched V2 about a month ago. We were able to get to pretty decent TVL by now, and we have a lot of markets already with like deep liquidity, high APRs, and I'm bragging about this for a reason. So imagine this case, right? There is like new hot real-world asset that is launching, and those assets a lot of times don't really have the liquidity, right? They don't have really big secondary markets because they most of the time they come, well, not most of them, they always come from traditional finance. So what you could do is you could come up with this idea, I'm going to build a lending protocol just for AWS, right? I'm going to focus on this. So the first problem you're gonna hit is liquidations. How do you handle liquidations with the asset that is not liquid? You need liquidators that actually have underlying balance, right? You need someone that is willing to hold the real-world asset in their own wallet and then repay the collateral, or rather debt, in the silo. So for example, if you have RWL paired with USDC, then someone must be comfortable holding this RWA because, well, that's how liquidations work. So it's very probable that the depositor of USDC already accepts the risk. I mean, he has to, right? Because you deposit money, so you're sharing the risk with this asset. And that means, why don't you just give them the underlying asset instead of liquidations, right? So you can default rather than liquidate. So when the position actually becomes insolvent, the USDC depositor gets the RWA assets with a discount because there's always a liquidation fee, right? So that's one thing you can do. That's the hook you develop, and then immediately you can just spin up as many silos for as many RWA assets as you want, and immediately create an UI, and you have your own lending protocol with big, nice differentiating factor. And then another problem that you're gonna hit very quickly is like, you can launch 10 markets, but if they're all empty, then it's not very attractive. So 0% APR doesn't really bring that many lenders. So what you can do, you can throw another hook on top of it, which is going to deposit idle liquidity from your silo, from your lending protocol, right, to our core lending, right? So as you guys see, hopefully, because maybe it's too small, but there's like SUSDC market with 11% APR. So what you can do, you can pair your AWA with USDC, and this underlying USDC immediately goes to this silo and earns 11%, which means if you start your own product, you don't start with a bunch of zeros. You start with all those inherent APRs. You can tap on this liquidity immediately, and you have plenty of those, right? You have plenty of assets with very deep liquidity, so you can jumpstart your own protocol. So if you merge all of this together, the hooks, the liquidation, the permissionless deployment, the idle liquidity management, you can literally start your own lending protocol within weeks and bootstrap all the liquidity using the underlying liquidity in Silo for your own lending. So this is the stuff that the hooks can do for you. And on top of that, remember, when you deploy the Silo market, you can choose on your own for yourself how much the fee for given market you're going to take. You have the range to choose from, so it's not given to you, and also this will basically bring you revenue, right? The same as it brings revenue to other deployers, to the DAO, etc. So you have a way to launch your own lending protocol within a couple of weeks and differentiate very well, actually, in the market. And you have those examples already in Uniswap v4 hooks, right? There's so many of them. There's so many projects that literally with like 150 lines of code, they're like a project on their own. They have user base, they have liquidity, and they work very, very well. So this is the biggest takeaway from the hooks and from this North Star idea that we got. With the very small amount of effort, now you not only can just literally fork Silo without forking Silo, right? You can fork Silo without having to deal with all the deployments, all the challenges, and like all the security assumptions that you're supposed to know. All of this is gone, but you get all the product stuff, product side on your side, and you can simply just launch your own project very, very quickly. So after that, the search for product market fit is also open for you, because you can just stack more hooks to your own markets, right? You can just keep experimenting. You can keep innovating. And you don't have to worry about all this underlying protocol infrastructure that you need to do in order to get to this point. So we created a quick start repository for you. There's like a playground where you can just go. You have all the heavy lifting done for you. You have the Silo deployed as a fork for you. You have the dummy markets also configured for you. So all you have to do is just focus on the differentiating factor that you actually want to implement. And yeah, and then just don't forget to set deployer fee, so you can bring sweet revenue when you actually launch your project. And thank you guys for listening. I hope I'm looking forward to see what you're going to build. Thank you.